But now, bro, praise God for that testimony. You have to make sure you put it on the wall up there. You got to put that on the wall. Always do that miraculous when God do the miraculous. They're planning, if Pastor Tony prayed for him and he's saying, well, first the hearing came back and when he got checked out, no scar tissue was there. And from being in the military, there was IED or something?
Yeah.
IED blew out their drum and God totally restored that and healed that, took care of the scar tissue.
What scars?
Huh? All right, James, get a chair, bro. Pull it up here.
This is exciting.
You sure did.
And that's cool to hear. It's very cool to hear, and I'm going to have to share that depth with Pastor Tony. And I think we saw them, when was it? Month before last? December. Well, we saw them then, talked with them, have been talking. They're planning their School of the Supernatural again for August. And it just so happens, First Lady, I'm calling First Lady Kim, she called me and she was like, if you think about anything that should be in the school, make sure you call us and let us know about it and all of that. Any kind of thing. So we're going to probably go down early and help her with the school. And she was asking me about formatting stuff. What did I think about certain speakers and all of that. So we're very much so, something I should share with y'all because we don't say it, but we very much so is a part of, you know, Embassy International, his organization as it relates to him being our spiritual father. And it's very much so there, I don't say this because I think it's different, but I am considered one of the favorite spiritual sons, I guess. One of the favorite spiritual sons. So very, 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 I think it's an honor to actually be in that. And I think what it really comes to is the heart and the nature of who we are as a ministry. Because if we really think about it, we have miracles, signs, and wonders and stuff happen here when Pastor Tony comes, but it's really about, come, chill. We want to hang out. If we see something, good. But if we don't, we're just as happy. And those types of things can let a person know who God is calling to be with them to really support and nurture. So we make sure we pay attention to what's going on with them. And as a report out, some people heard about this morning, but I want to share it out. Each month we sow into a ministry of sort. Through whatever monies God bring in, we take it from them as a ministry, and we're sowing into another ministry. That's how we have our impact internationally. That's one strategy, and uniquely, we was able to do that with Pastor Tony and them recently, and of course his wife called and was very thankful and was like, wow, and was like, you must have been in the spirit, because they're getting ready to go to California and minister to a congregation that has challenges taking care of them, taking care of the needs. So you as a ministry, you as a group, we as a ministry, we're funding ministry happening in California, the signs, the wonders, the miracles, all that kind of stuff is very much so connected to who we are as a house. And I gave them an example of other stuff that we have done in here, very much so. I shared how we end up paying for property of an orphanage in Africa and didn't even know it, just felt led to just to sow monthly. And upon sowing monthly, when God lifted up somewhat the burden to sow, got a notice that, a thank you note that, hey, thank you for doing this. We was able to use the money to buy a property for the, we didn't even know we was paying for that. And there's been other stuff going on as well that we really celebrate. And let me if I give you history about what that came from. Years ago, we had a prophetic individual came to the ministry and they asked the question, are you sowing? Are you doing different things outside the ministry? I was like, no. And they were like, you should do it. And ever since they told us that, we did it. And it has put us into a place of supernatural, I'll say supernatural resources, to where there's that's an area that we've been looking at, and we're going to look at even more this year. But as a ministry, we never really had no kind of debt, substantial debt. We don't got no credit, we don't got nothing. Typically, when we want to do something, we was paying cash for it. There can be benefits of having credit, especially for where we're going. And so we're kind of flirting in the spirit and seeing what the Lord want to say and what the Lord want to do concerning that. But I wanted to give you all that because an assumption on our part is that you know this stuff is happening and you'll know our philosophies and different types of things as a ministry when it comes around finances and all of that. But that kind of gives you a heads up. Even on that financial tip, our assumption is automatically, if you believe in the vision, you believe in what you're receiving. You never hear me preach this message about tithes and offering, even though I think it's a critical message. You never, because I live from a place of assumption that you automatically know that that's like foundational for me. If you have an issue, and I have to put it, and I'm saying, this ain't even part of the presentation. If you have an issue of paying tithes and offering to a ministry, you have no right to say anything about any ministry program going on. That is wrong. I'm point blank. Y'all hear me? And I'm not getting on you. I'm just telling you. This is what we live, and it's embodied in us. And so that means that, so what does that mean? That means that you get to be part of the journey, but that means for us that you ain't bought in. And what I mean bought in, you ain't got the vision and you don't believe it at the level that God is calling for you to believe it. As we put it out there to you, we have lived this. Y'all have lived it too. Okay? Putting it out there. So, we're going to be actually talking about, to kind of start out, being the missing link. You can go back there. Many of you will know that we actually recoined this phrase as it relates to the ministry over a year ago when we began to start talking about who we are and what we represent. And what are you going to constantly see in the language of the ministry? A recurring theme is going to be being the missing link. When we look at ministry, the first question we're asking, what is missing? When I look at a city, when I look at a neighborhood, when I look at whatever, I'm asking a question, what is missing? We're not into competing with anything. Right? Our growth is not predicated upon us creating a program that looks equal or comparison to another program. Our growth is predicated on us being able to see what is missing and us begin to start filling that gap as God has blessed us. Y'all hear that? Yeah. That's what we do. And so that's where it really came from. Huh? They have a handout?
Well, on the vision part.
Okay. So the vision statement is on your handouts?
Yeah, everything's on the handout. So
okay.
It has clarifying definitions regarding the mission, vision, and purpose of Ready to Serve to kind of give a fluid understanding that we're all on the same page. So there's no misinterpretation of what the 3 R's are, what servitude really means, what us or our really means when he talks about the buy-in and so forth. So that's for you guys to go over. We're not going to go over it because it's just for you to kind of get an idea and understanding that there is some clarity and we're all on the same wavelength when we talk to others.
And who remember the 3 R's here?
Restoration, reconciliation,
redistribution. Okay, so definitely y'all gonna want to review your handouts for that because most of the stuff that we do and how we operate and how we see ministry revolves around those 3 R's. And so you're going to want to make sure you got that core down within you. So if you're asking a question, why this and why not that, it's going to have something to do most likely with the 3 R's. Okay?
And then also we have some financial information only for those who are members of Ready to Serve and our faithful givers. You can see me after the meeting, and I will hand that to you. Right.
So on that tip, I'm looking around. Everybody, you're awesome looking people. Y'all, we definitely want to share the financial things with you in particular because that's important to us, not just for transparency, but so you can be full aware of what's going on as it relates to the form and function of the ministry, because it's so easy to think that somehow that this stuff just happens, right? That it's like we're in this building and it just happens. The electricity, it just happens. The internet service, it just happens. What it means for equipment, what it means for all those things. So we want to share that so you'll be able to see what's going on with it. And I think it's kind of outlined. And I want you to see it in particular because I'm looking for it to double, triple within the next year. That's so you'll know where we pretty much going. Okay? All right. Oh, something she wanted me to remind you of. You hear me talking about Arkansas, quite a bit with people happening there. There are people who are so committed to the ministry that's not here to where they're monthly givers. I mean, I say monthly giver, they're monthly substantial givers. Some are weekly. There are some out of state that are weekly givers to the ministry. So, which is going to lend itself to another reason why we're going to be launching something else you're going to see pretty soon. All right?
All right, so how did we do with what we said we would do last year?
All right. Who remember last year? First of all, while you prepping that, who remember last year? What was going on last year? Look back.
Is that when we had to go out and promote ready to serve by serving, by?
Yep. That's one of them.
Community?
Yep, that is definitely something that was going on as far as the ministry outreach. What was happening to the people as far as physically, mentally, emotionally? What was the ministry at a year ago? Do you care to remember?
Last year.
Just getting that, well, you were just
Hmm?
going.
I think we matured.
We definitely matured. We matured. But this time last year, we were starting to realize the maturity in that we didn't suffer as a ministry the way that we suffered for not. So we've been here for like 2 years now, and many of you probably think about before coming here, we had certain programming that was in place. When we came here, we pulled back to the bare minimum, as I call it, and we focused on what it means to start taking care of ourselves, trying to take care of our relationship, and trying to do things. That was actually critical during that time. And as God began to start healing and delivering, we began to start adding elements back. And so we have been progressively doing that, which I'm excited about, because before, the tendency would have been to just push through and keep everything going on, even though most of us were not in a place to be able to handle it mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Everything that was going on. So that pulled us back, and it's going to be in sync with some of the goals. You got one?
I don't know.
Okay. So what did we do or doing? Some things that we started, we are continuing to do. That's been over the last year. What is it?
New prayer center, Monday, Tuesday, and Sunday.
Who remember launching the prayer center? We launched the prayer center. We stayed with it, especially during that 2-year period, and then we started pulling back on some of it once we got to a certain place. But it's still going on Mondays. What day is it?
Mondays, Tuesdays, and Sundays.
Monday, Tuesdays, and Sundays is still going on all those particular times. We still have that going on. That's being maintained.
Services on Sunday.
We added Sunday services back and Bible studies, because remember, we was only Friday nights during that period of time. Friday nights in the prayer season. What else? We started working on relaunching men's ministry and women's ministry. With men in particular, it looked like with Lucas being able to come and develop our calendar by request of me, as well as putting different things on there. We're still in the infancy stage as far as developing it, grabbing momentum, but we started that. And women's ministry?
So, and then women's ministry, we just started back up again, because during the summer we shut it down because we have, the campfire church, which that'll come up here too. And so far it's been good. We added this year, when we're getting ready to go on to the women's retreat, we had a really good turnout. I'm grateful that most everybody is like, I'm on board. So we're gonna have a blast with that. Also, women's intercessory group, we did start that as well in September. And that has been powerful. I know it seems like sometimes we're praying the same prayer, but until God says change it, I'm not changing it. And it's been, God just is, I want you praying about this, and it's like, you're able to read it so it's easier to pray directly to Him.
Mhm.
So instead of saying, okay, I've got the subject, let me pray about this, instead it's telling you, this is what we're all in unison praying together, so we're not deviating and going our own tangent, because we're all supposed to be one mind, one spirit on this. Very specific. And if you are not part of this and want to be part of it, please see me afterwards.
Okay.
And then,
Youth ministry events.
do you want to talk, Marquise?
Yeah, so we started off pretty strong, I would say. We had a pretty good amount of youth, and then over like the past couple of months it started to diminish, and as you can see there's hardly no youth besides my sibling. So we're going to start doing more of an outreach, trying to pull them back in and stuff. I understand like the holidays and stuff, so we have to cancel events due to that. So we're just going to be trying to increase it more to be able to do more stuff, because the youth are our next generation, so we need to be getting them in here. They're actually excited about coming. So we could always use help with getting youth in here, so anybody's welcome. Ages, I think it's 11 through 20.
Yes.
So, yeah.
All right, and then Children's Church, we started that also in September. It is, even if there's a Sunday off because there's no kids here, we get that, but it's been very successful. You can see that there's not one kid trying to not to go in. I mean, even the littles are trying to get in there. And most of the time they stay, because we typically, I know like today we didn't, because there's only a few, but typically we have 2 people in there at all times with the kids. So if somebody has to go to the restroom, or it has to go out to the parent or whatnot, which doesn't happen very often, by the way, which is a sign. So that means the teachers are doing their job. They're doing very well. They're keeping them captivated and doing it their own way. So they're getting something different each week, not just different subject, but the content is different, but the people and the way that they're bringing forth the lessons are keeping them captivated, and they get excited. So it's like something new each week for them.
We had the relationship training. I think it went quite well. Definitely, online presence was huge for that one, if I remember correctly. Was huge for the relationship one. And the conferences, we talk about Pastor Tony and other ones that we either put on ourselves or maybe promote and support within the ministry. That's another one. In this area, we have different people, Gateway Church out of Coeur d'Alene, as well as the Healing Rooms, who are actually sponsoring certain type of events. So our desire is to make sure we're paying attention. Brother Vaughn, he normally keeps me updated when I ask about what's happening, who's where. But taking advantage of those types of things, because that's a regional thing as well. Okay. So thank you, teachers. We appreciate you all, regardless to where you at, where you going, how you doing it. We appreciate you because it takes, I'm thinking about with Charles, his 2 kids was coming to me and wanted to show me their artwork, and they was beside themselves with what went on in church. And that's exciting. Whenever we can see that, that's exciting. Okay?
So the campaign update, I know a few days before, because it was, it was literally 3 days before the end of the year when we had our last update, and we had 800 and something to go. So we didn't know if we were gonna make it. That seemed like quite a bit, right? Well, guess what? We didn't. So we made it. We actually went over our goal, which was huge. We're grateful. There was, special thank you to all who were so faithful in doing it and recording it. We had talked about it. We know that that's a gifting in evangelism. I think another thing is now it's like you're completely conscious of doing something that you completely forget that you were doing it. Oh, I have to think back. Oh, I helped somebody and I didn't even count it as that, because it becomes a way of life. So
this, for those of you who may not be familiar, or to refresh your memory, our campaign was part of our evangelistic area that we're looking at, in emphasis, is to start trying to track a little bit what we was doing day in and day out in terms of our contact with people, that it can be evangelistic in nature. Opening the door for someone, doing something special, paying for coffee, going out of your way to do greets, make people, they feel better about them. All of those was contacts. We was having you track them so you can actually track what you were doing. And so as we begin to start progressing with the next stage of evangelism, you're going to realize that you have the opportunity to connect with people, and the easiest form is naturally through that. And so we probably be talking about what it means to progress to conversation. Some of you already did, but what do we mean to start progressing even further to conversations with them that's going to lead them to restoration, renewal, or whatever that they need, backsliders coming back to the Lord, because this whole premise is based upon a kingdom mindset, not just a ready to serve mindset only. If you talk to someone, they feel inspired, and they go back to their home church after 10 years, that's evangelism. And so we're looking at all those types of things. So good job. Good job, you did, good job. You got that 3,000, so y'all know we're gonna be pumping it up in the next,
We're not keeping track.
we're not gonna keep track. All right, we done for right now?
Because we're moving on to the next, so.
Oh, good, because I was terrible, we should have been high, I was terrible at it.
Well, we were too, so.
Well, I did it all the time, but I
I
never
would
kept
admit,
track.
we didn't,
Hold on, what?
You forget.
I said I did it all the time, I didn't know I was supposed to keep track though.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people did.
Yeah,
But imagine what, if we kept track, if this number was multiplied by 3,
Yeah.
that'll tell us that was potentially 9,000
Amen.
contacts of people potentially for the kingdom.
Yeah.
In Spokane, I mean, the whole region got 450,000 people or something.
Yeah.
So you do that math and of a multiplication, it's possible within how many years to be able to touch and have contacts with all the people.
Yeah.
So, okay?
So it didn't mean stop doing it. It
No,
just-
keep doing it.
It's a way of
You're not
life.
tracking.
Don't keep track.
We're just not tracking it because now it's become so part of your nature, which is the point, to get you out there, out of your comfort zone to do something. And that's, you know, some of us were a little uncomfortable at the beginning, now it's like no big deal. Oh, hey, let me help you, or, you know, this or that. So, the agenda goals from the beginning of 2019, we want to go ahead and go over those to kind of show how much we accomplished and a couple things we need to work on. I mean,
Yep.
which is good, that we have places to work on. So you want to go ahead?
Yeah, baptismals and classes and stuff associated with it. One thing is we're looking at when individuals getting baptized and stuff, we want to have a class with them and we're going to track the actual number that's taking place in a year. That was a couple kind of was going that direction, but I don't think we ended up doing any of the year. But that's something that we're going to look at. I know we had requests. Oh, we had it set up one day and then James.
Yeah, so we actually did get one done.
Okay.
And so we went out to Mother Rose took and
Oh, okay.
made arrangements so that we can use the pool at her spot.
Okay.
So we was able to get that, and then just bringing in the year, we have another one who's requested to do a baptism. And so now it's moving to having a conversation about, you know, why they want to get baptized and what's their purpose behind it, you know. Because sometimes we'll take and go through, people go through the process and not really understanding
Right.
what they're doing and why they're doing it. So, you know, kind of what the goal is for us and the mission is to make sure that when people are coming through and accepting Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior, and as well as getting baptized, they truly understand what they're doing, so that when they do that, they're actually able to receive what God is giving them through Jesus Christ. So that's the whole purpose.
Good. No, thanks for the update. So you got that? I do know about the one cancellation. The men's group, we was at the lake, we was gonna baptize a few people, and then we had to cancel because of
Yeah.
rain. Okay, well, good. Thank you for that. Campfire Church, you know, we had that every month, had a great exciting time doing those types of things. We enjoyed hosting.
Yeah.
There will be some shifting going forward, but still up.
I mean, of course, we'll host at least one, but we're looking, others want to host as well, which kind of pushes out and delegates some of the work.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot of work to do all that.
Yes.
I mean, there was yard work, cleaning, you know, we get the food prepped and everything. So we're excited to delegate. We get to show up and just enjoy. And we enjoyed it anyway, by the way. I really enjoyed doing that, so it's kind of hard for me to let it go, so I'm going to be honest. But it's time to move on to allow others because they want to do it as well. And we didn't ask, they're asking us, so we want to do that. Okay, next.
So one thing that we looked at that we didn't get a chance to do as much was the training of the deacons group and deacon group development. Something that we're shifting in, though we got a chance to do a little bit, but something that we're shifting. We shifted more away from title specific to making sure we was looking at function. And so as far as our deacons group, we're talking about even changing the title to more of that teacher / members care specialists, to where we're talking about the function. We want to make sure we're teaching around the function of what it is and stuff. So that's going forward, something that we're going to be revisiting. Church outings, people got together.
We did. We did. We're gonna need to up it though.
Not yet.
We're actually, this is something that was on our heart too, get ready, not just the woven stuff, okay, not the women's stuff, but as a whole, get together, go do something, hang out, you know, just offer different things. Some people can be there and some can't. I mean, but what about next month? How's that gonna work? So we want to increase it, that is the goal. We gotta work to it though, okay? So that was one of the things we had for 2019. Did we do something? Yes. Do we wanna do more? Absolutely. So that's the goal for 2022. Not 2020, not also. How's that? 2 years from now. Okay, we got it. And then we already went over the teen group and outings, the events and stuff, more development, but it happened.
Yeah.
So that was something we put on the agenda for 2019 and it happened, so that was a good thing. And then the conferences and encounters, we also went over that.
We did, one thing that we noticed is, I don't think we beefed up the calendar last year, or was it the year before? We had certain things on the calendar and we canceled quite a few. 2018. So we're being very mindful of that, and part of it has to do with resources as far as people, as far as us delegating, as far as us really going through the process of healing to be able to do stuff, because there's a time to pull back and a time to engage. It's just with our time to pull back, so I'm not resentful, no way of it, so.
This was a big one that we actually, in January 2019, Pastor brought forth, where we have a group that wants to be part of the services and stuff. On Sunday mornings at 10:30 we meet, and we have a pre-service, during service, and post-service thing that we go through. Kind of went away from the post-service, but we talk to whom we need to talk about it. But that one hit, it took off, it's increased from there, it's very organized and so forth. It's how the service flows without hiccups. And when I say without hiccups, it's not us being out of order. If it changes, that, Holy Spirit has to lead too. So it's not about that, but just so there's no distractions, we're kind of have this constant flow. It's the point where we're getting to, you can add to it.
No, that's it. That's it, exactly. Part of what we add is, even what we're going to be looking to even more of in 2020 while we're rolling out is, we have to ask ourselves the questions. What we're doing, is it still what God is directing for us to be doing? Because some things are time specific, and do we need to be shifting it? But if we don't know how we're doing through having regular conversation, some other evaluatory type metrics, we won't know to shift. So that's what that's about. And so even with that, we're seeing the atmosphere. We're seeing how the atmosphere. We're looking at all these factors, because the whole goal is to not just make sure we're doing our best, bringing it forward, but we're making sure that we're shifting with the season, and we're pursuing God for the wisdom to shift when we need to. Okay? Communion instituted, definitely. It's monthly. That has never been a part of our structure, of doing monthly thing, and so that's something that's going on. As well as birthday celebrations, that's something that's happening, and of course, love for that to get increased. It'd be cool to be throwing them out I'm just saying, that's not my area, but to be throwing all those birthday parties to where we go out of our way and use it as an evangelistic tool for some of y'all that got friends and families. And to where you say, hey, if you find out my so-and-so has a birthday, and you invite them for that Sunday, because we're going to do birthday parties for them, and we have a special gift for them. It just so happens to be the type of gift we'll give to everybody, but it's still a special gift. That way we never caught off guard. So, okay. So we're going to be talking about 2020. To preface it, something that was amazing is at the end of what appears to be 2019, God, if you pay attention in the spirit, God totally started shifting what was happening in the ministry. There was an excitement that began to start infusing everything that we was doing. You was like, man, I'm ready to get back at ministry. It's like people was rested, people was healed, and open, like saying, I think it's about ready to get back going. That's in sync with what's happening in the spirit. And so what was happening, what has been happening, Christina and I, and definitely been talking to James a little bit about as well, we've been talking about, okay, where are we at as it relates to Ready to Serve Ministries? And where we see God taking us. And stuff we're going to bring up is stuff that God brought up at the conception of the ministry. When we sat down and wrote about it. Some stuff that we institute now was actually brought up when the ministry was first conceived. So from the time it was conceived to even right now, we're at a place to where we're definitely seeing it being able to come to a fruition, but we got to sow in it with a sense of intentionality. And I'll talk more about that because something interesting also when we look at ministry, and you're going to note this throughout this year, we're paying attention about function, form, as well as I'm paying attention to gift sets, calling sets, as well as people being prepped and matured. And something also is very important that I share with everybody, and we're going to always be leading and developing, but we developing a mindset that we're working on developing leaders. It's about leaders. We're developing leaders here. And if we're developing leaders, there are certain things that you automatically start shifting structurally that's geared toward the development of leaders. So keep that in mind. So some stuff you're going to hear, the development of it, that's a piece of it, but also the body is fitly joined together. People have different gifts and all of that. Our hope and our desire is that we're able to start placing people consistently in places to where they have the gift, but they also prepare because they went through the process of healing to where they can handle the responsibility as they're going through leadership development if we choose, as we're choosing, as we're prayerfully putting people in places and all this stuff. We're not doing that today, but these are conversations that we're having as it relates to stuff, and you'll see an outline of stuff even more specifically I'm talking about. But for 2020, we are going to build and develop a church growth goal. Right now, I look at it, our capacity, we sit around probably what, 100, we sit probably around 100 people that's connected. Very much so connected local. When we look at local congregations, around 100, probably a few over that, who consider themselves probably part of Ready to Serve Ministries. That's great. I mean, people maturing, people doing that. Something that we're looking at in particular, because we're not just into goals, but we're praying specifically and saying, God, where you want us to be at. At the end of 2020, when we sit down and we're talking about this, we want to be able to say that, okay, 150, 250, 300 people, regular attendance and everything that's happening Ready to Serve, and going to track what's happening online as well, because there's a big increase happening online with people as well. So that's something that we're going to be doing, establishing, that will be part of the report out system in terms of what's happening. Okay, next. And part of what's going to be connected to that, I talked about the group in Arkansas, the people in Hawaii, that's people in Africa. We're going to be launching a national spiritual mentoring group via the app Zoom. It just so happens I had a couple people out of town ask me, was this something that we were thinking about doing? And we had been thinking about doing it for a while. And so what I'm doing is making sure right now to give you an update where we at, I'm honoring process and protocols because a lot of people that I'm talking to, they're connected to other houses and stuff. So they actually have to get permission and various things before I will let them be a part of this group from their pastors and from their local assemblies and stuff. So that's something that's happening that we're launching right now. More youth group development, and what that means, what that looks like is going to be even more intentional about looking at material, looking at videos, maybe looking at models.